Hi, everyone, and thanks for being with me. I'm going to talk about something I call TBS, which is Trump Bewilderment Syndrome. And I am talking about this because I am bloody bewildered. I don't understand what's happening in terms of the way people view Trump, why they think Trump will win. And clearly, they think he'll win because for some reason, Trump holds a sense of power and authority that most people want, but will do anything in order to get it. And so the reason why I'm really concerned about this is that I do wonder to what extent we as a nation will start to take on some of the nuances, some of the behaviours that we see in someone like Trump. And why would you want somebody who's been impeached 2 times, who has 87 indictments against him, and who clearly is misogynist, racist, and who has a range of prejudices that can stretch for miles? So why is it that we want someone like him to be leader of the most powerful country on earth? I am bewildered by that. We live in a society whereby morals, ethics and principles do seem to matter, where people want to have leaders who have integrity, who have a sense of what is right and what is wrong, who can define the boundaries that sit in our society in reasonable and appropriate ways. Now, not every politician gets it right. I understand that. Albanese stuffed up a week ago, get all of that. He makes many mistakes, and there are many mistakes that the Labor Party make, or decisions they make, that I certainly disagree with. But what I can't understand is why people are sycophantish, if that's a word, towards Donald Trump. Now, my understanding is that there are a range of people who just simply want the system to change. They're unhappy with whatever it is their perception of what's happening in their country, that they want this so-called strong man, which is a deception to say the least, because he's far from strong. He's actually a weak little shit who tends to express himself by using language which is confronting, which is challenging, which creates an image, a false image, I hasten to add, of a man who they believe, those who support him, can change the system for the better. The reality is that Donald Trump will do whatever he can to destroy democracy. He will not only destroy it in the United States, he will endeavour to do the same right across the world wherever he has influence. I am sure that a Trump election will mean the end of democracy in the US, and it certainly will destroy the world order as we currently know it. So what is it that is the attraction? Well, I'm going to play a video that from Sky News where our friend Stefanovic, the guy who decided to have a go at an Indigenous bloke who won $1 million competition recently, and this man, Stefanovic, is a racist. His prejudices are available for all of us to witness. There's no other way of putting it. And so he interviews a bloke who is an American and a professor at a university here in Australia, I think. And it is evident of the prejudices that these people show in this particular interview. So I'm going to play this for you because at the moment it does appear that according to the polls, Trump is slightly ahead of Joe Biden. Now, I personally am not a great friend or fan of Joe, but there are many indicators that he's doing what appears to be or presenting policies that are affecting the United States in a positive way. The stock market is up, the unemployment rate is down, employment rate is up, There's a lot happening in the United States that is positive. But that, interestingly enough, doesn't seem to matter to the Americans. What does matter to them is whether they can have this facade, this false impression of what a man should be in terms of Donald Trump. And this is what seems to motivate them. Not the realities about this horrible, horrible man, but about what he tends to present. And now, I think this is the greatest con of our time, that this man represents all the things that most of us decent people, I think, hold as being the worst expressions of who a person can be. Donald Trump is it. Yet, for some reason, people like Stefanovic and others tend to hold him up as being the golden boy. Colour, he is. Gold, he is, in terms of his colour. But certainly, they see him as somebody that's holding up a version of who we should have as leaders, so that we can vote for the most autocratic, undemocratic person that we can think of. So here he is interviewing this Professor Dude, and just listen to what he has to say.
Well, it's 6 months to the day until Americans head to the polls for the US general election. The countdown is on. Let's bring in Curtin University's Dean of Global Future for our regular Monday chat, Joe Siracusa. Joe, so let's start off with it's a two-horse race. Who's in front?
Well, Pete, I've been looking at the polls overnight, and Pete, I'm feeling lucky. I want to call the election 6 months out, okay?
Okay.
And then I'm going to tell you why. Donald Trump is going to be the 47th president of the United States. There's not much we can do, not much that Biden can do about it. 57% of Americans disapprove of Joe Biden. Donald Trump is ahead of Biden by 17 points in terms of the economy, inflation, law and order, and especially immigration. There are only 2 areas out of 20 where Biden is ahead of President Trump, and that's in the area of reproductive rights and health services. But Trump has beaten the Biden on all accounts, and I think the final coup de grace comes from Bernie Sanders when he raised his troops again and roused his troops again by identifying Biden's support for the war in Gaza as illegal and immoral. And keep in mind, 45% of Americans aren't even going to go to the polls. They don't. We only get about 55 to 60% participation. And right now, a number of polls have picked, a number of polls say that President Trump's ahead by 2%. Okay. But look, he's ahead by 10%. In all the swing states, 7 states. So I'm going to predict that.
Okay, good call. Good call. 6 months to go. I mean, there's a lot of people who would agree with you, and I feel like you might be right. Now, the reason why I'm wavering a little, Joe, is because last time Trump got beaten by a fair bit, right? The general vote, the Electoral College overturned those 2016 results, despite what everyone might think. Has he done enough to turn that around this time around?
I believe he has, as a matter of fact. I think he has turned these things around. And look, Pete, he survived the Mueller report, 2 impeachments, all these phony trials. I mean, this guy just keeps going on and on. And, he's not warm and fuzzy. But I'll tell you what, this guy is the guy you want batting cleanup for you in the New York, in Yankee Stadium. I mean, this guy just doesn't quit. And look, a lot of his supporters see the same thing. And it isn't about, the Trump versus Biden. Biden's out of the picture. He's considered, 80% consider he's too old to run. They're looking for somebody who can turn the page. And of course, the re-election of Donald Trump is going to be good news to Australia and the Australian economy, the Australian military, be good to England.
I just need to say that I think that that's so much bullshit. And it's a bit disappointing that someone such as Joe Siracusa, who's supposed to be an intellectual in this space, has such a one-sided sense of who Trump is. And the fact that he said that these cases against him are false is an indication really as to where this particular individual sits in relation to Donald Trump. And it's somewhat disturbing, I think, that he thinks that this is going to be a good thing for Australia, because even though I disagree with AUKUS and I certainly disagree with our reliance on the United States, I would suggest that this would be a stumbling block for the Australian government in terms of whether AUKUS will actually continue, whether it will go ahead in the format that it currently is. So let's see what happens there. Let's see what happens with regard to trade. Let's see what happens in the United States with regard to their efforts to combat climate change. Let's see what we need to watch Donald Trump turn back all the things that Biden has put in place, and which ostensibly means that the United States is heading in the right direction. This will be a 180 turn, I should say, around, so that the United States will then become the pariah of the world, that we will find ways to realise that the United States is no longer our ally, that Trump himself will be our enemy, and we will need to do whatever we can to confront that. And perhaps one of the lessons we need to learn, which I think we're starting to learn now, is that we need to be a little bit more isolationist and focus internally on the things that are important to us, such as manufacture and so forth, and developing a clean energy environment. So let's see what happens here. I'm a bit concerned that Trump will eventually win this election, even though, as our friend Joe says, only 60-65% of the United States who are eligible to vote will vote, and a lot will depend on the enthusiasm for Trump, which I think is waning. I certainly don't agree with Joe in terms of his assessment, but what would I know? So what do you think, though? And remember to subscribe to my channel, ring the bell for further notifications. But do you think that Donald Trump is likely to win the election? And if you do, what are the advantages of him doing so? In the meantime, take care, look after yourselves, and more importantly, be safe.